Hi again, everybody. I'm Jamie Allison, and this is the Big Idea, Big Moves podcast. This is the destination for high performers. We talk to people from different areas, different genres, different niches, just people doing really cool things in their space, things that we can hear a bit about their journey and what they're doing, and hopefully translate them into our own lives, as well as just hear some interesting stories as well. So I have one of those today. Again, we talk to lots of athletes and entrepreneurs and all those things. We have an athlete that we're going to talk to today. But just before we jump into that, related to that too, is if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that we have a connection with Thirdzy. And if you don't know Thirdzy, they create natural products that help athletes and high performers, regardless of your field, get better quality rest and recovery from physical and mental stress. They have a PM recovery collagen in particular that's melatonin-free, sedative-free drink powder that gives you good quality rest and also supports joint and muscle repair at the same time. So you just take a scoop of that before bed, and it works. So definitely take a look at it. If you want to go into our Instagram profile, inside there in the bio, you can save 20% if you put in the code BIBM20, or just go directly to thirdzy.com and see if it's something that you'd be interested in. So really happy to have Rachel Rettger with us today. She played 4 years of collegiate tennis at Elmhurst University before turning to pickleball and a pro career in pickleball. She's a mixed doubles nationals gold medal winner and plays for the Bay Area Breakers in the MLP Challenger League. And while climbing the ranks in her sport there, she works as a sales and marketing associate as well. I know related to pickleball, so all of those things we'll talk about how you balance those things. Probably a little bit easier, at least that they're connected jobs, I guess, from that end, Rachel. But first of all, thanks for taking the time with us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I'm really excited.
All right. Well, first of all, why don't we talk about your journey into pickleball a little bit? Because maybe first of all, were you always athletic? I mean, obviously you played tennis at university. So how did that come about first of all, and then how did you jump into the sport of pickleball?
Yeah, great question. So like you said, I played tennis my whole life growing up. I played in college. I did go to Elmhurst College, now Elmhurst University. So I played there. It's a small D3 school. So I'm not really comparable to the players on tour who played at Virginia or Cal or some
Yeah,
crazy one program. That wasn't me.
yeah,
But yeah, I played there, and then once I graduated from my undergrad, I coached for 2 years while I got my master's there. And then while I was kind of doing that is when I found pickleball. I was just kind of trying to stay active in my off time, and one of my
yeah,
friends introduced me to pickleball, and I'm from the Chicago area, so it's not really at the time, 2, 3
yeah,
years ago, it wasn't super popular there.
yeah,
It was more like something I'd heard of people doing in Arizona or California,
yeah,
Florida. So I really had no clue what it was.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, she took me out to the courts on the tape lines on a tennis court. Um, and I was hooked from then on. So
Yeah.
then I just kind of started ramping up playing, and here I am now.
Yeah, yeah. And how did you find, because we have talked to a couple of pickleball players, and I asked the same question to Ben Johns when he was on, and asked him, what is the translation like between other sports, and obviously people may have this idea that, oh, tennis, you can jump right into pickleball, and he explained that, yes and no, because there's a bunch of
Yeah.
things that you might be able to do it at a certain level very quickly. But then after that, it is a very different strategic game and things like that. Is that true for you? And do you see, are there certain things that are so different that it's like you really having to jump into something quite different?
I think I agree with Ben there. No surprise, he knows what he's talking about on
Yeah.
that one. But yeah, I think with tennis, if you've played tennis for a while, you have a good understanding of mechanics and that sort of stuff, which does easily translate over to pickleball, um, for the most part. So I think a lot of tennis players, we have the skill sets, and then it's just applying it to the game of pickleball. But that can be like a really mental block to overcome, because if you've played tennis your whole life, you have things ingrained in your brain that you should be doing. And then
Yeah.
when you come to pickleball and they're like, no, you have to hit that soft, like you're
Yeah.
not driving that one. It can be really hard to overcome that thought in your head that's telling you to rip it.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. I think when tennis players come into pickleball, some have success because they're just ripping it and it's like chaos. And people who are now pickleball players aren't used to it. And then once they play them once or twice, they're like, okay, you're just ripping it. Like this is easy now.
Yeah. Now I'll just
Um,
move out of the way and it'll
yeah,
pass right past me.
exactly. But yeah, for me, that's the biggest thing. And I find myself like at very random times making the silliest decisions on the pickleball court. And I'm like, that
Yeah.
was so tennis of me.
Yeah.
Um, but definitely I've learned over the couple of years to kind of forget my tennis past. I don't even know if I could play tennis anymore, but yeah,
Yeah.
definitely the strategic part of it can be a tough adjustment for tennis players.
And how about now? I mean, the growth of the sport, it has been exponential. Actually, even since you were talking about, at Chicago at that time, it was, more of a southern US kind of sport at that time.
Right.
That's changed obviously a lot. Um, have you seen a lot of that change happening? And does it also change because obviously, being at the pro level, you probably see even just how many people are coming into the sport at younger ages and all of those things as well. What's that been like since you're kind of right in the middle of all of that?
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty chaotic. I think in a great way. It's great to see that the sport is growing so fast,
Yeah.
and that people of all ages, skill levels, whatever, are getting into it. Um, I know like back in Chicago, I went home for the holidays and there's multiple pickleball alone facilities all
Yeah.
over now. And I'm like, this is crazy. I was playing at tennis clubs like on taped lines every
Yeah.
single time. Like if I could find a designated pickleball court, that was like a miracle. And now they're all over. Um, and I think like on the professional side, there's always people coming in that are hungry to kind of get into the sport and have a breakout moment. And for
Yeah.
myself, I feel really lucky to have got in when I did because it
Yeah.
was like the sport was exploding, but it wasn't like it is now.
Yeah.
So I think I was able to kind of establish myself a little bit before this giant influx of people. So it's tough if you're a newcomer now trying to break into the sport. I think it's a lot harder than when it was even just a year, 2 years ago, just
Yeah.
because there's now so many people, so many high level players. And it's really crazy, but it's great for the sport long term, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it is interesting to see how much it's changed in that short amount of time.
It's
Um,
crazy.
one of the things that, and I know you even kind of talk about, I think and it probably has become even more so, is a focus on fitness to play at the pro level. Like when I say fitness, all around fitness, not just kind of the prototypical, racket sport, what you might have done in the past. How it's funny. I did notice that even you've done CrossFit before, and Andrew Hiller, I think, called you the fittest pickleball player. Which, hey, and there's a lot of CrossFitters who
Clickbait.
listen, so they'd actually know Andrew and know kind of that's pretty cool that he was able to say it. But I just mean, obviously you've kind of grasped that whole kind of full all-round fitness piece, and how important is that? How important is that in for you to be successful at a pro level now?
Yeah, I think that once you start getting to that top level, I think that little things, not calling fitness little at all, but I think something like that, if you take someone that has the same racket skills as you, but you're able to kind of have a leg up in fitness, stamina, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
I think that everyone's so close once you get to the top that if you can find something that can help you differentiate from other players, um, that you should do it. I think obviously fitness, we're all professional athletes, so I think fitness should be a priority for everyone, especially to prevent injuries. And, sometimes we're going back to back weekends. We're playing every day. We're playing 5 matches in a day at some tournaments. So I think people who are in good shape definitely have an advantage in those longer days, or MLP when you have to play so many events per day.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's really honestly more of a personal thing. I obviously see the application to pickleball, but I mean, CrossFit, I just like.
Mhm.
I like the workouts. I like that I'm like wanting to die by the end of it. So it's just that's just a personal choice, but yeah, I think everyone at the top level should really kind of lean into that fitness aspect because I think it's gonna, even especially as more players come in, it's gonna become a bigger aspect of the game.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe tell us a little bit because you have, I mean, you have another job as well. And so for you, what what is a day like normally or a week like? Because you obviously have your job plus you have, as you were saying, in pickleball, for those people who maybe haven't been exposed to it as much, it is a full kind of not just a weekend, but a long weekend full of events almost every weekend. So tell us a bit about how do you prepare? How do you fit in some of the things you have to do during that time?
Yeah, it definitely can be a lot. And if I'm being honest, sometimes I don't have the time to fit it all in.
Yeah,
So I just kind of have to look at the things that I want to do and prioritize them in a way. But I do have a full-time job, so I work for JOOLA,
hmm,
and I have worked for them for about 2 years now since right before they launched into pickleball. So
yeah,
that alone has been really cool to see, starting from nothing to where JOOLA is now is really crazy.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, for me, daily, I wake up pretty early. Yola is based in Maryland and I'm on the
mm,
West Coast.
yeah,
So I usually wake up pretty early to kind of get started with my work for the day.
yeah,
Um, and then, I'll work for however long I need to, and then probably later in the day, like late afternoon, evening is when I'll schedule some pickleball games or drill.
yeah,
Um, Usually earlier in the day, I try to go to the gym if I find a little bit of time.
yeah,
Um, but that's really it. People always ask me, "What do you do? What do you do every day?" I'm like, I work out, I play pickleball, I go to sleep. Like
yeah,
that's all I have time for. So during the week and then at tournaments, juggling work can be a little bit more difficult just because I'm on court for a greater amount of time, but
yeah,
I do work on the marketing side and I handle the social media. So
mm,
luckily I can do a lot from my phone. And then also while I'm there and around other YOLA players, I can grab content and kind of coordinate things with them. So I'm able to do some more hands-on stuff when I'm at tournaments. So
yeah.
yeah,
So
it's a
busy
lot.
days. Yeah,
Busy days, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. YOLA's such a great company, and
yeah,
obviously the pickleball lifestyle is crazy, but it's obviously not gonna go on for my whole life. So I think I'm just embracing it for now.
yeah. Well, and how about I mean, socially, like is that your social kind of connection then now? Because it seems like most of your life in some way, even work and, your pro career are also integrated with that. I'm assuming that's where kind of if you're able to fit in social things, it's probably connected with that same kind of community. Is that right?
Yeah, for the most part, I would say almost all of us, were our friend group,
Yeah. Yeah.
so you don't really have time to go out and explore and meet new people unless you just have already had those friends established from pre-pickleball.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good and bad. I think it's good because you get to see your friends every week, but on the opposite side of that, when it kind of encapsulates your entire world, sometimes I find myself just saying like I need a break from pickleball entirely because it's my work, it's my social, it's my
Yeah.
fun, it can be a lot. So I've actually set a goal for myself. I don't know if you've ever heard of Bumble BFF, but
No, but yeah, okay.
it's like Bumble or like a
Yeah.
dating app, but it's for
Yeah.
finding friends.
Oh, really?
So I'm like, I'm gonna step out of my comfort zone. I'm gonna try to make a girlfriend that's outside of the pickleball world so I can
Yeah.
kind of, get a break from all of that. So that's something I'm working on.
Yeah, well, and it probably is that. You probably need a bit of a release from that too, right? Like just
Yeah.
you're gonna talk differently with somebody outside of that group than you would otherwise as well, which is actually are you when you do talk about goal setting, are you a right write everything down kind of person? How do you set goals, both professionally and kind of, in your work and all of those things? Do you take the time to do that? Do you take it as it comes? How does that work for you?
I do a little bit of both. So at the beginning of the year, I kind of made a list, whether it was pickleball related, life related,
Yeah.
something dumb that I want to do or want to change.
Yeah.
Um, I do have like a list in my phone of my 2024 goals and
Hmm.
things that I want to do this year. And I kind of add to it as I see fit. So if something comes up at work or something comes up with pickleball, I add it to my list. And I think I'm usually pretty good about achieving my goals, but I also think I make them pretty attainable.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah, no, I'm definitely the person that I like to keep track of. If I want to do something, I kind of make it a priority of mine and write it down and try to work towards it.
Yeah. Cool. Um, how about with mentors? Like, did you, as you were going through this, I'm sure that there's probably the people you look to from a pickleball standpoint, but probably also just kind of generally. Are there people that have inspired you as you've went along that you really kind of look to from that end?
That's a good question. I actually think pickleball is a little bit interesting in that regard because it is in its infancy,
Hmm.
it's a little bit tougher to have those
Yeah.
mentors, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Um, and it's so not comparable to tennis because in tennis, if you set a goal, you'd meet with your coach every couple of days. They're feeding you
Yeah.
balls, they're breaking everything down for you, and you have
Yeah.
someone there to work with you.
Yeah.
There are pickleball coaches, but not really to that same extent as
Yeah.
tennis.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, there's
Especially at your level, I would assume. Like by the time you're at
exactly
your level, you're all playing in that same group right now anyway, and and age doesn't matter as much from that end right now either. So those
right.
people are probably still playing at a pretty high level, right?
Exactly. So it's hard and I do find myself kind of like searching for that, like wanting
Yeah.
that coach figure. I
Yeah.
will say that now that I'm on the Breakers, we do have a team coach, Scott Crandall,
Yeah.
um, and he's in California, nearby me as well. So I've been able to kind of work with him on certain things ever since I gotten drafted, and even just that little bit of work with him has really helped my game,
Yeah.
and I really appreciate that. But other than kind of that coaching, I mean, I definitely have players that I admire and I would want to mimic their game, or maybe their presence, or yeah,
Sure. It's
they're like
kind of picking up
emotions on
pieces of
court.
all of it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
little pieces. You kind of look at everybody and we see everybody every week, and you think, oh, I want that shot, or I
Yeah.
really admire how she's so calm in these moments. So definitely you take things from the best players, but yeah, it's definitely tough to have a kind of a
Yeah.
mentor in pickleball.
Yeah. And the one thing, and that makes me think of there's lots of people are saying that because it is such a sport in its infancy that there's a lot in the game that isn't prescribed as much as maybe in tennis. Things have been done for a long period of time, so people are still almost inventing parts of the game as you go along in pickleball now, which is I'm sure exciting, but it is quite different in that sport. Like there's not many sports that you can say that wow, there's new stuff that's happened this week that we've never seen before, and things like
Right.
that. And that's still kind of happening. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's ever changing. Pickleball, there's new shots, there's new paddles that unlock new shots, and
Yeah.
it's there's so much to take in, and I think that's why there's maybe no like established coaches, because it's so hard if you're not a player to kind of learn those things as they come. And I think, yeah, like you said, if someone knows it, it's because they're playing, they're not
Yeah.
coaching.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
yeah, it can be a lot. There's always something changing, but
Yeah.
sometimes you just got to focus on the things that you do well and pick up
Yep.
one or two things here that you think would add, but it can be a lot if you try to take it all in.
Yeah. And I mean, you're in sales and marketing outside of this. So how important is it? I mean, you see, especially in your sport right now, either your real pushes around branding around people and kind of personalities and them taking control of that from a personal brand standpoint. But then also MLP is a good example where there's a lot of kind of branding and even just changing how games are presented and things like that. How important is that from your perspective, knowing kind of you come from a sales and marketing background? How important is it that way to be able to increase profile?
Yeah. I think it is very important. And I mean, I'm kind of a hypocrite for saying that because I think because I do social media for my job, mine is a bit lacking. Like I could definitely do a lot more. I'm not the person that posts every week.
Yeah,
It's like few and far in between. But I do think for players that are, wanting to differentiate themselves from other players, it's a really good idea to do, some personal branding like that. I do think just as kind of an observer, I do feel like everybody in the pickleball world tries to brand themselves the same way.
yeah,
And I'm like, I get just from the outside, I'm like, okay, I'm tired of seeing this video from every single person.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
I don't need to see like every person's talking about what they do for recovery, what they do to work out. I'm like, I do think people need to start getting a little bit more creative just because
yeah,
everyone's putting out the same sort of content right now.
yeah,
And I think if you look at players like Tyson McGuffin, like he's really kind of found his niche that makes him a little bit eclectic and different.
yeah,
And he's really leaned into that and people love it. And I think even if Tyson were to drop to, you know, significantly lower in the rankings,
yeah,
he would still have so much like presence and sponsorships and whatever
yeah,
because people just love his vibe.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I think it's important. I think it's going to become more important. And I love to see the MLP teams doing it too, because I think as MLP moves forward, people are going to, have a home team that they really love and really want to, be able to have that personal feel with the players. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's cool
Very,
to see, and I think we'll see
yeah,
more of it.
yeah. Well, and again, it's that beginning stuff, right? So, do you have a favorite kind of memory so far? I mean, you're early in your career, but is there something that stands out as, wow, that was a really cool opportunity that this has brought me so far?
Um, I mean, I think as pickleball players, we are in unique situations where we get to meet really big named people
Yeah,
because everyone's playing pickleball and even
yeah,
those, people of high status.
yep,
So we do get to kind of meet and interact and play pickleball with some of those people.
yep,
So on that kind of front, um, I think I was talking to someone the other day. I think I've played pickleball with Sergio Garcia, the
hmm,
golfer.
yep,
That was really cool, really nice guy. Um, I've gotten to play with like the Dirks Bentley band. They're really nice guys, and then
yeah,
went to a concert a couple of times. So those opportunities are really cool. But I think on like the personal level, I would say this last MLP really stands out in my brain as being a really strong memory for me. Obviously, like I'd mentioned, Scott is the coach of the Breakers.
yeah,
And then one of the owners, Jeff Wynn, he's one of my really good friends. So
hmm,
I was feeling a lot of pressure to perform.
hmm.
And I knew that I was kind of going to be that piece of the puzzle that either fit in or kind of brought everything down.
Yeah,
So I was really, really worried and stressed, and it was a lot. And so to be able to kind of go and perform well and be able to kind of help my team to be one in the rankings after the end of it was really great.
yeah, yeah. Very cool experience. What kind of goals do you have for the rest of this year? Like, what are there any big things that you really want to achieve this year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think for MLP, um, I mean, I of course I want to win.
Sure.
So now after this first event, I'm like, you know what? I do think that we are one of the best teams, but with MLP, I feel like you never know.
Yep.
Each day could be different.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think if we were able to, I'll say top three,
Yeah.
to be a more achievable, but I really want to win.
Yeah.
I think for MLP, that's my goal. And then personally, I mean, I think with the normal PPA schedule, I obviously want to just feel like I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
Um, with all of the contract stuff, there's really not too much incentive for performance.
Mhm.
So that's not really my focus as much as MLP is.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think my focus right now is on MLP and staying high in the player rankings and helping my team to kind of get one of those top 3 finishes.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so one of the things that we ask everybody is to have um, you know, a way to kind of translate a couple of tips to people, and I'm sure there's tons of people who are listening that either follow or will be following your pickleball career because they probably are doing some of that themselves. The one thing that I know can be a little bit tricky is you do a lot of it doubles, doubles work and also teamwork. Um, how do you have a couple of tips on how to be a good doubles partner? Because I mean, I think, if, for those people who've listened, who have played pickleball before, that is can be a tricky thing. Is how do you measure that off, and especially if people with varying abilities and things like that. What are some of the things that are essential in being a good pickleball partner?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think people don't, I think they kind of minimize the importance of being a really good partner. And I think it can really make a huge difference
Mhm.
if you have the right energy about it. But for me, I always try to be super ultra positive with my partner because the more positive you are, the better they're going to play. And I think we've all been in the scenario where we're not playing our best and we have the partner that you can tell is mad, that you can tell is annoyed with you, and it doesn't help you. It just makes you more nervous and you're like, shoot, if I pop this up, like my partner's going to kill me.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's really important to stay positive, but I realize that can be tough, especially if your partner is crumbling into pieces. So for me, what I try to do whenever I feel like there's maybe one specific thing that my partner isn't doing so great, I I do like a little mental trick, and at a timeout or something, I'll be like, you're doing this so great. And I think if we could just maybe focus on putting your dinks here or, reaching more out in front of you, I think you would be right there. And then it would be like, you'd be so amazing. Like, and I really
Yeah.
try to make it all positive language. Because we're all high level players and you know what you're doing wrong. If you're messing up, you don't need someone else telling you all the things you're doing poorly. So I really try to stay positive. I always paddle tap my partner, high fives before every point. I'm like, come on, let's do this. It's all about the positive energy. So that would be my tip to people who are trying to be a good partner is even if you have some constructive criticism, start with something positive and then give them the tip of how they could even take it to the next level.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, there's so many things that's applicable to, not just pickleball. So,
Right. I do that in
eh,
life too.
yeah, I was gonna say that's always a good approach. And if you're in business, anyone listening to that, it works the exact same way when you're giving feedback.
Hmm.
So that's awesome. If people are trying to follow you, follow what you're doing, and follow the MLP and some of those things over the next little while. What's some of the best ways to be able to follow you, Rachel?
I would definitely say my Instagram. It's at Ray, RAY_RETT.
Yep.
Um, I'm super like I'm always on my phone. So if you message me, follow me, whatever, comment, I'll see it. I'll respond. I'm very responsive.
Yeah.
And then obviously the breakers. I think it's at breakers_MLP. That could
Okay.
be totally wrong.
We'll put it. For those people that want to go through it, we'll put it in the show notes so you can click right through and follow your team too. So we'll have both of
Perfect.
those on there. So either way, if you missed it, just go into the show notes, everybody, and click through and make sure you follow Rachel's stuff because yeah, some really cool stuff that you can see on there, and also a real up and comer in that field. So that's fantastic. If you haven't hit subscribe on the podcast, do that now. We have great people every week, just like Rachel. But again, we already went through all the stuff that you're busy with in a week. So thank you very much for taking the time with us, Rachel. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jamie.
All right. And everybody else, we will talk again soon on Big Idea, Big Moves.